ولن نساوم على الحق أو الثوابت.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast here on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. Lebanon's cabinet convenes to resume discussions on this year's draft state budget following a parliament session to discuss the public sector's controversial salary scale bill. U.S.-backed Syrian militias cut the last main road out of ISIS-held Raqqa, severing the highway between the group's de facto capital and its stronghold of Deir ez-Zor province. And U.S.-backed Iraqi forces capture the second of Mosul's 5 bridges as they continue their offensive against ISIL from the western side of the Tigris River. Lebanon's cabinet has convened to resume discussions on the 2017 draft state budget. Sources say the endorsement of the fiscal plan is likely to take place during a session chaired by President Michel Aoun on Wednesday. And earlier today, parliamentary joint committees held a session to discuss the public sector's controversial salary scale bill, particularly its cost and the proposed taxes to cover it. The cabinet on Friday approved all provisions related to the 2017 fiscal plan, except those concerning the public sector's salary hike bill, setting the stage for the endorsement of an official budget for the first time in 12 years. Ministers said an agreement to include the cost of the salary scale bill into the state budget has been reached, while a draft law on revenues and proposed taxes to cover the cost will be referred to Parliament. Finance Minister Ali Hassan Khalil, who has estimated the cost of financing the salary scale bill at 1.2 trillion Lebanese pounds, has proposed a series of taxes to cover it, provoking wide condemnation from ministers, lawmakers, labor unions, banks and private businesses. French Defense Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian says his country continues to support the Lebanese army, declaring additional training courses. Le Drian made his statement during a meeting with President Michel Aoun in Babda Palace. The French official, who arrived in Beirut on an official visit on Saturday, began his meetings with senior Lebanese officials this morning. He was expected to hold discussions with Prime Minister Saad Hariri, Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri, Army Commander General Jean Ahwaji and his counterpart Yaqub Sarraf. He will also inspect his country's UNIFIL contingent in South Lebanon. Minister of State for Women's Affairs Jean Ogasapian has pledged his full support to women in the Arab world struggling for their full rights at a UNESCO event in Beirut. The event, titled Women's Empowerment is the Nation's Empowerment, is in recognition of International Women's Day, observed and celebrated on March 8 every year. Ogasapian announced his ministry managed to set a clear hierarchy, appointed a team and established a website, in addition to following up on 11 draft laws at parliamentary committees and referring 4 decrees to the cabinet for deliberations. He added that the ministry's objectives are to end discrimination and violence against women and increase their role in political and economic life. The minister also promised to cooperate with civil society and human rights organizations in an attempt to fortify women's role in society. U.S.-backed Syrian militias cut the last main road out of ISIS-held Raqqa, severing the highway between the group's de facto capital and its stronghold of Deir ez-Zor province. The development, confirmed by an opposition-aligned organization that monitors Syria's war, marks a major blow against ISIS that is under intense military pressure in both Syria and Iraq. Further west, the Syrian army has made its own rapid progress against ISIS in the last few weeks, advancing east from Aleppo city towards the Euphrates. A Syrian military source said the army would press on to reach the extremists' main strongholds in Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor. Coming up next, North Korea reportedly fires 4 ballistic missiles into the sea. More details after the break. Welcome back. U.S.-backed Iraqi forces have captured Mosul's Al-Hurriya bridge that leads to the ISIL-held city center from the south in a new push to drive out the fighters. The bridge is the second to be reclaimed by Iraqi troops in Mosul after the first was secured in the south during the offensive on western Mosul launched on February 19th. All of Mosul's 5 bridges over the river Tigris have been destroyed in the fighting, but the recapture and repair would aid in the government's fight against the group, which remains in the north. The capture of the bridge comes a day after Iraqi forces launched a new push towards the city's old center from the western side of the Tigris. U.S. President Donald Trump was poised to sign a new executive order banning travel from certain Muslim-majority countries, according to a senior White House source. The new order, replacing an earlier version that was blocked by federal judges, will exclude Iraq from the blacklisted countries, but continue to block entry to the U.S. for citizens of Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Iran, Libya, and Yemen. South Korean and Japanese officials say North Korea has fired 4 ballistic missiles into the sea off Japan's northwest coast, days after the reclusive state promised retaliation over U.S.-South Korea military drills it sees as a provocation for war. Seoul said 4 missiles were fired from North Pyongyang province into the East Sea and that South Korea and the U.S. were closely analyzing tracking data for further details. Seoul and Washington began annual joint military exercises last week, something North Korea has long condemned as a deliberate provocation. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said 3 of the North Korean missiles came down in Tokyo's exclusive economic zone. A London-based designer has developed pollution-busting face masks to protect children from the English capital city's toxic air. Doodle masks come in colorful designs, including Disney film themes, designed to attract children, and are sold online for £7.50. More details in this report.
You know, when we went to the museum and we looked at the water.
6-year-old Yusuf now feels slightly safer on his walk to school. He's wearing a new face mask designed especially for children in London to protect him from the city's polluted air. His mother says the mask is the least he deserves.
The face mask is important because you want to prevent your children from taking these, their pollution into their lungs and affecting them. Especially like if my son maybe can develop asthma in the future, having me, I'm asthmatic. So yeah, anything to prevent from pollution and trying to reduce them having this bad air to their lungs definitely is any mom or any parent would do for their children. This is the minimum you can do.
The masks are the brainchild of Tian Trams, whose concern over London's poor air quality turned into a passion to try to protect young developing lungs.
As adults it affects us, but not as heavily as what it does children. And the main reason for that is because their lung development isn't to the point where it's fully developed like an adult, so they are affected almost, I think, 60 or 70% worse. So I did a lot of research into cotton, the types of cotton, the intertwined cotton, different layers of cotton, and how many you really have to have together for it to do something. And the way my masks are made with the 2 separated layers of cotton and the way that the fabric is woven is actually scientifically proven to reduce between 40 to 60% of these particle intakes.
Air pollution kills nearly 9,500 Londoners every year, according to King's College London. Britain's High Court even ruling government measures to tackle the problem fail European Union rules on nitrogen dioxide limits. The response? A new £10 a day tax on older, dirtier vehicles coming into force later this year. Yusuf's message to the Prime Minister, a plea for cleaner air.
I should say we should stop everyone from throwing rubbish on the floor, and we get a lot of electric cars so they don't make that bad air pollution.
Aiji Baishi Shala is not your ordinary school in India. The students at Grandmother's School in the village of Pangan, 120 kilometers east of the financial capital Mumbai, are elderly women who are getting this chance to learn to read. Have a look.
This elderly Indian villager is off to school, though not your ordinary kind. She's a student at what's called Grandmother's School, set up to teach women over the age of 60 how to read and write. The lessons are held in a classroom in the village of Pangana, 75 miles east of Mumbai. They go for 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, scheduled in the afternoon so the students can finish their chores. It's the first step to giving these ladies a second shot at an education, and they're clearly having a lot of fun.
We've started reading, writing and also doing our own signatures. So far we can't read or write very well, but we are still trying and we are really enjoying it.
Women continue to lag behind men when it comes to literacy levels in India, which is why the classes have been set up, and age is certainly factored into lessons.
You can teach children by shouting or even scolding, but you cannot do that with the grandmothers. You have to teach them over and over with a lot of love and patience.
And just a bit of that can go a long way. These women are living proof that you're never too old to learn something new.
Well, as was just said, it's never too late to achieve anything. And on that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. Lebanon's cabinet convenes to resume discussions on the 2017 draft state budget following a parliament session to discuss the public sector's controversial salary scale bill. US-backed Syrian militias cut the last main road out of ISIS-held Raqqa, severing the highway between the group's de facto capital and its stronghold of Deir ez-Zor province. And US-backed Iraqi forces capture the second of Mosul's 5 bridges as they continue their offensive against ISIL from the western side of the Tigris River. Those are your top stories in English for today. I'm Linda Tanuna. Thank you all for watching.
ولن نساوم على الحق أو الثوابت.